Hi, y'all, and welcome to Wait, Hold Up, What? Season 2, Episode 7, if you can believe it. I don't know how we're here. Um, Thank you for joining us. So, I'm just going to jump in today. It's just me, no guests, but I promise some really good guests are coming up soon. Recently, I was spending time with my nephews. Now, if you know me and you're listening, you know I'm pretty obsessed with my nephews and now my new little niece. But I was spending time with two of my nephews, and the older one, he just broke my heart. He's the sweetest thing ever. Like, I can't even express it. And he was being so adorable with his brother. So we're sitting in the room and I'm kind of babysitting him. And I was asking the younger one, like, what happened in school today? How was it? And he starts telling me this story about the kids. And he said, whatever it was that was happening, he's like, and then they called me weird. And I was like, "Oh," but before I could even get to anything, his older brother jumps in and says he hits pause on his video game even, and he says, "That's okay. People call me weird all the time." And we kinda both look at him, and he says, "When that happens, I just go outside and play by myself, and I have fun. So if they think that's weird, it's okay because 'cause I'm having fun." And he kind of looked over at me and gave me, like, a little smirk as if he knew how proud I was gonna be of him in that moment, and he was so right. But my heart, while swelling 10 size, it also cracked a little, right? Because it's this moment of knowing. It's a crack of why is the world like this, and why do we repeat those patterns? And, when I watch them and it goes into the evening and I get to put them asleep, one of the things that I do is we, as a group, say goodnight, but then I put each one of them to bed individually and we have a little conversation. And so I went and I talked to the little one and we talked about weirdness, and it was sweet. And I'll keep that conversation to myself because I do want some of these things to be sacred, right? But I'm gonna talk a little bit about what happened with the older one without giving too much away. Um, so I go into his room. He's always the last because he's the oldest, and so our conversations tend to get a little bit deeper. And I was chatting with him, and I just said, "Does it make you sad when people call you weird?" And he said, "Sometimes." And this moment gave me hope. The sometimes. This recognition that maybe it's a bad thing, but maybe it's a good thing, it really gave me hope because when I was a kid, being called weird crushed me, and I was called weird a lot. And sometimes that connotation or the way in which the word weird was used towards me it stuck and it stayed. I don't even wanna say sometimes. I am about to turn 49, and it still stays with me. I can go to specific moments throughout my life when someone used weird or a version, a synonym of weird to put me down or put me in my place, and I just ugh, it crushes you. It does, and if it doesn't, please email me and tell me how it doesn't, right? And it was such a constant description in my life. Like, if I think about the words that were being used from the playground to the boardroom, it has been used to classify me and box me in, and the weight of that often led to me shrinking and dreaming of what it would be like to be normal or average or like everyone else. And I'll admit to you, that's embarrassing to say out loud because I am always like, do you, be authentic, be the best version of you, but I'm also human, right? And and all of my favorite people are weird. All of my favorite artists are weird, musicians are weird, leaders, speakers, you name it, because they stand out from the background. And when you do that, you change the world in the process because you're showing the world the possibility. And yet, for some reason, with myself, that's harder to embrace. And I think it's because being weird is hard. The way in which we define weird, right? It's being different, and being different is hard. How do you navigate a world that isn't made for you or made for people that are different? And I gotta believe that the reason people use it against you is because they're afraid of that magic, that light, that energy that your particular version of weirdness brings into the world. And I don't know why that is. I don't know what they're afraid of. I think it's probably different based on what the weirdness is. Because embracing your weirdness and your authenticity, it's it's such an act of vulnerability. It's it and like it's putting yourself out there in a way that isn't without risk, and it invites people to let or invites you're inviting people to know who you really are. And right, the world has taught us maybe we shouldn't trust that, and maybe that shouldn't be for everybody. And it's funny because I think one of the things that connects humanity is the desire to be seen, or to be known or to be accepted. And yet, if we're not vulnerable and we don't put our whole self out there, we're never seen, uh, and accepted as our whole self. And so we often conform and we try to be like everyone else, and and it's counterproductive, right? So I thought maybe there's a way that we can unpack this concept of weird, right? So I'm going to look over here at my notes for a second for those of you watching because I want to pronounce and say this right. So the actual word weird comes from an old English word. And now that I'm realizing it, I don't actually know if it's pronounced weird, wired, but it's WYRD. And the definition of that old English word means fate or destiny. So wait, hold up. What? Oh, how cool is that? There's no negative connotation to that. It's your destiny to be weird. God, I love this. Okay. It's it so the word has evolved, obviously, right? Over time, it's got this more general meaning. So at first, in this kind of process of how words developed and form over time, it was given a connotation of meaning unusual or unexpected. And even then, it's kind of dope, right? Because it's being out of the ordinary or unexpected still doesn't have a negative connotation. It's just something we weren't expecting. And yet, in our culture, the word weird is more often than not seen and offered up with a negative connotation, as if something is wrong with the fate of being unusual or unexpected. And I'm going to be honest, when I was researching the word and the etymology, guys, do you hear me use the word etymology? I think I even used it right. When I was researching that, I had to sit with it. Like, really let it kind of fold over me. And I was looking at how kind of the way in which we take a word and almost bastardize the word to mean something negative as this like protective layer for us. Like you're calling somebody weird because you don't understand what they're doing. But also, culture has made this really interesting shift, both for the positive and the negative, right? With the introduction of the internet and the introduction of social media. And what it has done is it has taken every level and form of, let's say, entertainment, right? Television, music, movies, art. It has taken all these expressions of storytelling and these, what do you call them? Avenues of storytelling. And we no longer need 100 million people watching a show for it to be successful, right? We no longer need to earn X number of dollars to have success. And it's created these niche populations where no matter what your weird is, you can find it and you can find other people that have that same weird. And this creates what I think was the result of my nephew saying, "Does it make you sad to be weird?" And he said, "Sometimes." Because it probably depends on the environment that you are in. And as we talked, again, I'll keep most of this conversation private, but one of the things that I said to him is, "I don't know if you know this, but Aunt D is very, very weird. And people have been calling me weird for my whole life. Even yesterday, someone called me weird, and his eyes got all big, and he looked at me, and I said, "But, that used to make me sad, and then I found weirdos just like me." And I found people that like the things that I like to do and celebrated the things that I like to do. And I said, "So now I refer to myself as a beautiful weirdo, and I embrace all the weirdness. And I go in the places that make it feel less of a negative and more of a positive." And we had a really long discussion about that and finding your people. And the reason I'm bringing that conversation here today, number one, I talk a lot about this in circles of women because so often than not, the things that make us unique are often used against us. They're called weird, they're called strange, there's all of these things. And so we are made to conform in the places where we work, learn, and play. And yet, all of this beautiful magic that comes with being weird, all of this beautiful nuance and uh, new things that come to the table from being weird. And that really was a lesson for me, right? I've been called weird in boardrooms. I've been told I have a quirky sense of self, that my brand doesn't fit into the company or place that I am. And it's so short sighted, right? Because it can be used to make you shrink, and oftentimes I did do that because I didn't know what to do with the information. I think what I've come to realize is that your opinion of me doesn't matter. Now, that is so much easier to say than it is to feel, right? I post a social media video online and someone makes a negative comment, and that comment might be about my looks, about the way that my face contorts when I talk because I'm very animated, right? Or my opinion. And sometimes you can say, wait, is that the world? Am I wrong? Or are they wrong? And we try to box things into places. But the exercise of the work that I'm doing and the exercise and work that I do when I coach women or talk to women is being able to block out the noise because those opinions are not my business unless I want them to be my business. Now, the struggle that I have always had with this is if I ignore what people say about me, am I narcissistic? Do I have an ego? Am I overconfident? Am I a jerk? Right? Because I never want to be seen as those things. But again, that is putting negative labels on things that might not need a negative label. And you know in your heart of hearts who you are. And if you don't, that is what growing up, that is what aging, that is what being out in the world is about, right? In order for us to be truly actualized as human beings, we have to have this realization that life is about learning. You never stop learning in your life. And if you do, if you stay closed off to the lessons that life presents you, you do not grow as a human being. So, what is actually the point of being here? Right? I don't believe stagnation is the point of anything. And even if you look historically at us as a world, right? It's about going out, finding new things, innovating, doing all of these wonderful things to take your generation or your lifespan and evolve it further than the ones that were before you. And so my journey is to learn and to become fully who I am supposed to be in this universe. And again, these are all very esoteric concepts that aren't always easy to fully, I don't know, live in, if you will. And so it's a constant struggle. It's a constant battle of saying, okay, what feels right to me? And so oftentimes when I get a negative comment or backlash or somebody doesn't like what I said, what I do, I sit with it. So I was in this coaching session with a woman yesterday, and again, I'm not going to give details, just a small snippet. And we talked about the opinions of others and this tendency for us in conversations and in dialogue with people to immediately react to whatever is being said. So the practice or the suggestions that we talked about was saying, Thank you for that feedback. I need to sit with it for a minute. That's it. You don't need to explore or expand any information. And the reason that I'm using that now is because it allows me to process and to figure out what of that feedback was meant for me and what of it I need to return back into the world, right? Or what of it I need to throw away. Because everything has layers of keep and throw away, right? And only you get to decide what to do with them. And so if I take that beat and go back, I can then go back to the person and again say, I really appreciate that you gave me that feedback. Here's how I'm receiving it. Here's how I'm taking it. And it's not about defending your point of view. It's not about retaliating or reacting. It's about having genuinely safe and open, authentic conversations so that people can understand how things impact people. Because in the social media world, we live in a place in where we can shout into a void without the repercussions of what that does to people. And it's a constant struggle, right? Because we think we're good people. And it's all these good people that are putting out hate. It is. And we don't know we're doing it, but we get so upset or frustrated about something that we seemingly think, how can you not know that this is this or that or whatever it is, that we then react without thinking. And it creates this universe where we build conformity or we build people that think, why can't I be normal? Why can't I be like everybody else? When the truth is that it is the beautiful weirdos that are changing cultures, that are advancing the cause, that are fighting for other people because they have experienced the pain that comes with being othered and different, right? And so they have this empathy and compassion for others to allow their weirdness to come in and their weirdness to come in. And then the beautiful thing is, if we turn social media on its head, you can find community in the places where your weirdness is celebrated. And you can find things that make you feel seen and heard and valued. And at the end of the day, that's kind of what we're all looking for. And it's this acceptance for warts and all, or, quirks and peccadillos and all of those things. And I really loved that conversation with my nephew because I felt like I learned something from him in it. And it was so subtle. It's not like he was like, Auntie, let me tell you how you should live your life as a weirdo, right? And I think I don't know, you can tell me how you feel, but there often seems like there's this battle between generations. And I never quite understand it because every person who enters your life is a lesson. I truly believe that, right? Old, young, same age, middle, male, female, non binary, right? Like different religions, different belief systems. It's all taught to help you center yourself in your beliefs and the type of world that you want to live in. And yet, I think sometimes we don't value the lessons that come from obscure places or the places we don't think we should be getting the lesson. We want an expert, right? But now everybody claims to be an expert. And even even in this podcasting world, right? When it was suggested to me that I start a podcast, the literal first thing I said was, why in the world would anybody want to listen to me? And you know what? They might. This all might go into a void. 20 or 30 people might listen to it, and that's it. But if it provided something for one of those people, then it was worth doing. And that is a lesson I had to learn in a world in which we're told you need to be an influencer and success looks like that. It looks like 100,000 followers or whatever it is. But my goal is to have an impact in the world. who am I to say how big or small that impact should be? Because I could impact one person and that person could go on to impact the world. And that is for all of us, right? And we look at success being so or having to be so big. And what that does is it creates a mindset of never being content and never being satisfied because you didn't do as much as the person next to you. And it creates these unrealistic plateaus to reach. I don't know. Uh, that's not to say that you shouldn't strive for whatever greatness looks like for you. And for some people, that's 100,000 likes. But what happens when that goes away? Does your purpose, does your value go away? I do a lot of coaching on finding your why, or speaking, coaching, whatever you want to call it. The word coaching is always so weird to me. But when we talk about it, so many people refer to their why as these outside things that can be taken away from them. And I think even when you kind of study this concept, which I've done a lot of, that is where we might get the concept of our why wrong. If you're living for another human being, what happens when that human being goes? Whether it be death, oof, right? Or whether that just be that that person was a season and a reason, not a lifelong thing for you. You adjust, right? And so when we really look at our whys, when we really look at our purpose and we really look at our passion, it is something really wholly internal. And you have to dig deep to find it because I think sometimes we what's the word I'm trying to use for this? It's like you're looking at something that you can like package into something small and catchy, a phrase, whatever. And life is going to throw all these hiccups your way. And your why is very rarely impacted by hiccups. Now, I say rarely because life has this way of making you question everything, especially when you're going down one of those roads that isn't exactly easy. And it's okay to question. It's okay to refine along the way, right? Again, that is the process of life. That's the process of learning, the process of growing. It's what we were put here for. And so refinement is fine. If I've learned anything, is that I don't know anything for sure. And that if I am open to the learnings and the teachings of the universe and the people and the experiences that I have, I can be okay internally and I can feel good in my spirit and my soul while still remaining open to what the world has to offer. And I think as we look at the trying times that we are currently in, it can be very easy to get sad. But I want us all to keep that word sometimes in our brains and our mind and our soul and our spirit. I don't know, put it up on a wall, whatever works for you. Is that everything changes. Every day, every minute is this opportunity for something to switch. It's for an opportunity for something to go awry, which I pointed up, which I meant to say something to go great when I pointed up, and something to go awry. And there are no good decisions. There are no bad decisions in life. They are just decisions that lead us to a path for the next decision. Everything can be corrected. Everything can be detoured, right? And so if we think about the concept of sometimes, and we think about this concept of reframing how we think about ourselves and how we think about the way in which people box us in, we can embrace being beautiful weirdos, right? We can realize our worth and path and lean in these beautiful ways. And it can be easy to lean into the negativity and to believe the negativity, but we don't have to. And that takes practice because the world does tell us a lot of negative things, or it tells us we got to buy this product in order to be seen as especially as women, right? As beautiful, as successful, as appropriate, and depending on where you look, someone's gonna have a different opinion. So, if you're living your life based on everybody else's opinions, you're never gonna find this level of contentment or joy or be able to access it in positive ways because you're always waiting for the other shoe to drop. And I don't want us to do that. I want us to lean into all of the amazing things that make us unique and authentic. And again, I struggle with this so much. And so I love that my nephews are teaching me, that young people are teaching me all of these things. And I love that this generation before me is also using their voice now to share what they went through and share the lessons they learned so that I can take from that and I can use all of that to bolster myself and the way that I feel and the way that I come into the world as a fully formed, I'll own it, beautiful weirdo. And I don't want to make apologies for that anymore. And so, what I want to say to you is embrace that beautiful weirdo. Lean into who you are. Know that you are dope. Our only responsibility in this world is to make it better, to not spread hate, and to fully embrace who we are and be as authentic that as we can. We don't know the world anything else. Don't hurt people. Don't hurt yourself. And eliminate girl hate in its connotation, because I get asked all the time, and I know I repeatedly try to validate our name or whatever, and I shouldn't do that. But I want to put perspective on it. Yes, eliminate girl hate is about all of the hate that girls, women, and those who identify as such receive in the world, the messages they get that tell them they are not enough. It is also that concept, whether true or imagined, this is for another episode, of girl on girl hate, how we're supposed to compete with each other because there's only room for one of us. Mm, Such a lot. But then there's also that self hate that as women and girls, we're often taught to bear. And eliminating that is so important. And it's why our logo is a heart. It's why we use the term girl, because a lot of that uh, messaging and that training or brainwashing, if you will, starts when we are young. It starts when we are girls. And if we can learn, excuse me, to just fully embrace who we are and to love it and to understand that not everybody is going to love it and that that's okay. You don't have to like me. That's why I have certain friends and not other friends, right? Not everybody is gonna like me, and why in the world I thought they all needed to. Doesn't mean it doesn't hurt when somebody doesn't or expresses that they don't because, no one likes to hear that. But I was listening to this interview on the Jennifer Hudson show, with Kiki Palmer, and can we all just agree, like, that girl, woman, she's got such a light, right? But she was talking about how she's learned to reframe things, right? And she said, if I don't get a role in the movie, I reframe that to say that movie's not going to be as good as it would have been if I had been in it. She's like, you may call it delulu or delusional, but I call it a reframing. I love it because my first inclination was, well, I get it. Kiki Palmer can do that. Look at her. Look how talented she is. Look how beautiful she is. Look at how smart she is. And yet, I don't think that applies to me. Um, by the way, I always forget because I'm looking at myself as I do this, which is a really weird concept. But I make these faces and I realize not everybody is watching the video. Some are just listening, but I just made some really weird faces because how wild and crazy is it that I will give permission for someone else to have that kind of confidence and not myself? And so I'm reframing these conversations. I know how dope I am. I know what I bring into the world, right? And I just need to stand firm in that. Look, that doesn't mean I can't be open to feedback and conversations with people and evolve. But at the heart, I know who I am. And if you don't know who you are, That's where you need to get centered. Get centered in who you are. Spend some time with you. Start to love spending time with you. Because, girl, I am my best friend. And that may sound weird. I don't even care. I love weird, right? It is unexpected. It's unexpected to love yourself. So shock the world, love who you are, embrace your beautiful weirdo. And until next time, thank you for joining Wait, Hold Up, What?